Your perennial bed should not require a calendar, a fertilizer schedule, and a permanent backache to look good. If you are planting every spring, deadheading every Saturday, and watering on a fixed schedule, you are gardening on hard mode for no real reason. These 9 perennials are the opposite of that. Plant them once, in the right spot, and they bloom year after year while you sit on the porch with coffee. They survive mist watering. They handle real American weather. They do not need staking, dividing every 2 years, or expensive plant food. Stay for plant number 9. It is the late-season bloomer most laser gardener lists skip entirely. And once it settles in, it actually gets harder to kill every season. And at the end, I will give you the simple 3-plant starter combo I would put in the ground myself if I were planting a fresh corner this fall. Plant number 1. Peony. If you have bought the same perennial 3 springs in a row at the garden center, you already know the gardening industry's quiet little business model. Some plants are sold to you on repeat. The peony is the one that breaks that cycle harder than almost anything else you can put in the ground. Most gardeners think a peony is a fussy old-fashioned plant their grandmother grew. It is the opposite. It is the closest thing American gardening has to plant once and stop thinking about it. The peony, Peonia lactiflora, is one of the few perennials that lives in the same spot for 50, 75, sometimes 100 years. Sarah Bernhardt is the soft pink double bloom most people picture. Festiva maxima is the clean white version with a single red fleck at the center. The reason peonies last that long in one spot is the woody crown that sits just below the soil line. That crown stores enormous reserves of energy through winter. While annuals are starting from a seed every March, your peony is already half a year ahead of them, fully fueled, ready to push 4 feet of foliage and bloom in 6 weeks. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8. Full sun, average garden soil, decent drainage. The bloom window is short and explosive, late May into early June across most American gardens. Here's the move that separates a peony that flowers for 50 years from one that just sits and sulks. Plant the eyes, those small reddish buds on the crown, no more than 2 inches below the soil surface. Bury them 4 inches deep and you will get foliage every year and 0 flowers for the rest of your life. This one mistake kills more peony hopes than every pest combined. Picture a single peony bush in early June, the size of a small ottoman, covered in 30 or 40 dinner plate flowers heavy enough to bow the stems toward the lawn. That is one plant, around $20 at the garden center, performing every June for the rest of your life. The financial math is almost unfair. Use this if you have a sunny spot you will not redesign for a decade. Skip it if you are still figuring out where your borders go. Coming up next, a plant that punishes you for being a good gardener. Plant number 2. Sedum, autumn joy. You are walking past the perennial bed in late July, hose in hand, ready to do your good gardener duty. Stop. Some plants thank you for the water. This one quietly rots from the inside while you pat yourself on the back. The wrong belief here is the most common one in American gardening. More water and more fertilizer equal more flowers. Sedum reads that exact treatment as a slow attack. Plant number 2 is Autumn Joy Stonecrop, properly Hylotelephium herbstfrode, though the old Sedum name is what is still printed on every nursery tag in the country. The thick fleshy leaves on this plant store weeks of water inside them. The plant is a living reservoir. When you irrigate it heavily, you flood the roots beyond what they were built to handle, and the crown rots out from the middle. Those leaves were designed for drought, not for kindness. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, one of the widest ranges of any perennial sold in this country. Full sun, lean soil, sharp drainage. Blooms August through October. The flower clusters open dusty pink, deep into brick red, and finally turn rust copper that holds standing on dry stems well into December. In late May, pinch the entire plant back by 1/3. It looks brutal. It takes 2 minutes. What it does is force the plant to branch heavily from below the cut, which prevents the August flop that ruins most autumn joy plantings in American yards. Pinched sedum stands upright through October without a stake, without a wire ring, without any help from you. In October, when the rest of your bed is brown and the lawn is going dormant, this plant is a 24-inch dome of rust-pink flower heads with honeybees crawling across the top. One $12 nursery pot turns into a 3-foot clump in 3 seasons. Divide it once, and you have free plants for an entire fence line. Use this if your soil is poor and drains well. Skip it if you have heavy clay that holds water through winter. The next plant is one most American gardeners have walked past at the nursery without recognizing what they were missing. Quick note before we keep going. If this is the type of plant advice you actually use in your own yard, hit subscribe. I'm not going to lecture you about it. I just put out one of these every week, and you will not have to go hunting for the next one. That is the whole pitch. Plant number 3. Jerusalem sage. There is a category of plant most American gardeners walk straight past at the nursery because the pot looks unimpressive in May. Jerusalem sage is the one that punishes that decision the hardest in year 2. The wrong assumption is that a plant has to look dramatic in a 4-inch pot to be worth the money. Phlomis is the opposite. The pot tells you nothing about what this plant becomes in your yard by August of its 2nd year. Plant number 3 is Jerusalem sage, Phlomis russeliana. Despite the name, it is not from Jerusalem and not really a sage. The botanical name is the one you want to remember when you ask for it at the garden center, because most staff will not know the common name. Phlomis sends down a deep taproot the moment its roots hit soil. That root keeps going. By year 2, it has reached moisture and minerals that other plants in your bed will never touch. Drought does not bother it the way it bothers your other perennials because Phlomis is not drinking from the same water layer everything else is fighting over. Different depth, different rules entirely. Commonly listed as hardy in zones 5 through 9, with some growers reporting success in protected zone 4 spots. Full sun, well-drained soil. Blooms from early June through July with stacked whorls of soft yellow tubular flowers spaced up the stem in tiers, almost like a candelabra. The seed heads stay standing after bloom and hold their architectural shape straight through January. Do not cut Phlomis back in fall. The dried seed head stems are not garden waste. They are the entire winter performance. Frost rims them. Snow caps them. The whole plant looks like a piece of forged metal in your January bed when everything around it is bare ground. Cut the stems down in late March instead, right before the new basal foliage pushes up. By year 3, one Phlomis is a 3-foot clump of large, soft green leaves with 5 or 6 flower stems rising straight up out of the middle. You bought one $14 plant. It now looks like the centerpiece of a designer's herbaceous border. Use this if you have a full sun bed with good drainage and you want a structural plant nobody else on your block grows. Skip it if your soil stays wet through winter, because the taproot will rot. The next plant is the one that solves the early spring problem most laser gardener lists skip entirely. Plant number 4. Begonia. Every American garden has the same blank period. March. The crocuses have not fully shown up. The tulips are still underground. The lawn is half mud. And your perennial beds look like a graveyard of last year's stems. The wrong belief is that you have to accept March looking dead. March is the gap nobody plants for. Plant number 4 is Begonia, also called pig squeak because the leaves squeak between your fingers if you rub them. The cultivar Winterglow is the one to track down. Bressingham white is the cleaner alternative if you prefer white flowers over rose pink. Begonia has leathery, almost waxy evergreen leaves built to resist winter desiccation. While every other perennial in your bed is dying back to bare ground in November, Begonia is still standing there. In zones 5 and warmer, those leaves take on a burgundy-bronze tint as temperatures drop, so the plant is actually more colorful in February than it is in summer. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. Handles part shade and full shade better than most perennials at this size. Average to slightly moist soil. It is not picky beyond that. Pink or white flower spikes push up in March or early April, depending on your zone, when nothing else in your yard is open. Resist the urge to cut Begonia back in fall. The whole point of this plant is its winter evergreen presence. Cutting it down in November turns your most reliable winter plant into bare ground for 5 months. If a leaf gets ratty by March, snip that one leaf, not the whole plant. Walk to the back door on March 15th. Most of your yard looks half dead. Your Begonia clump has burgundy-tinged leaves the size of your hand and a 12-inch spike of pink flowers already opening. That early spring photograph is the whole reason serious gardeners plant this in the first place. Use this if your shaded spots look bare in winter. Skip it if you are in Zone 9 or warmer, where it tends to look stressed by July heat. The next plant is one experienced gardeners have been quietly hoarding while everyone else fills the front of the border with catmint. Plant number 5. Calamint. If you have ever planted catmint, watched it bloom hard for 6 weeks, then watched it look ratty by July without a heavy shearing, this next plant is the one you actually wanted from the beginning. The wrong belief is that all small-flowered border plants need cutting back every few weeks to keep blooming. Calamintha is built differently. It blooms continuously from June into October without a single shear, deadhead, or intervention from you. Plant number 5 is Calamint, properly Calamintha nepeta. Look for the Marvelet blue cultivar for pale blue flowers, or Marvelet white if you want the cleaner look. Both are major improvements over the older white cloud variety that took 4 or 5 years to fill in. The flowers on Calamintha are tiny. That is the whole secret. Each individual bloom uses almost no plant energy to produce, so the plant never has to stop and recover the way bigger flowered perennials do. It just keeps pushing fresh flowers continuously across a vast network of stems. No nutrient drain, no pause, no shearing required from you. Hardy in zones 5 through 9. Full sun, well-drained soil. Reaches 12 to 18 inches tall, slightly wider than tall, and forms a soft mound that holds its shape without flopping open in the middle. Bees and small native pollinators work this plant from morning to dusk all summer long. Plant Calamintha at the front edge of a border, somewhere you walk past daily. The leaves release a strong minty fragrance every time you brush against them with a sleeve or pant leg. Most gardeners place it in the back of a bed and never get the scent payoff. That is wasted real estate. This plant wants to be touched. From late June through the first hard frost, the entire plant looks like a soft blue cloud humming with bees. No deadheading, no staking, no cutback. One pot at $15 turns into a 24-inch mound in 2 seasons. And the bees in your zip code will treat it like a free buffet from sunrise to sundown. Use this if you have a sunny front edge and you are tired of shearing catmint twice a summer. Skip it if you garden in zone 4 or colder. Now, the standard sun-loving workhorses are behind us. A quick reset. From here, we move into the picks most garden centers do not put on the front table in May. These are the ones experienced gardeners trade tips about over the fence and at plant swaps. The next 4 plants are where the real laser gardener payoff lies, and the mistakes around them are the ones that almost nobody warns you about in print. Plant number 6. Brunnera, Jack Frost. Almost every American gardener has the same shady corner. Under a mature tree, against the north side of the house, in the dry shadow of a fence. They have planted hostas there 3 different times. Hostas keep failing because that corner is not regular shade. It is dry shade, and those are 2 completely different problems with 2 different plant solutions. The wrong belief is that dry shade is hopeless or that hostas handle it. Dry shade is one of the toughest spots in American gardening, and a small group of plants is built specifically for it. Brunnera is the headliner of that group. Plant number 6 is Brunnera macrophylla, also called Siberian bugloss. The cultivar Jack Frost is the one to look for, with heart-shaped leaves splashed silver-white between deep green veins. The silver-veined leaves are not just decoration. That silvery patterning reflects the small amount of light that actually reaches deep shade back upward and outward through the bed. Brunnera is one of the only common shade perennials that boosts the brightness of its own corner instead of disappearing into it. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. Tolerates dry shade, pot shade, and dappled shade. In May, sprays of tiny forget-me-not blue flowers float on wiry stems above the leaves for 3 to 4 weeks. The foliage holds its bright silver pattern all summer and looks freshest in August when nothing else in your shade bed does. Plant Brunnera at least 18 inches away from the trunk of any mature tree. Closer than that, the tree roots win every nutrient and water competition, even with Brunnera's tolerance for dry shade. Give it 18 inches of breathing room and it establishes fast. Plant it tight against the trunk and it just sulks for years and never fills in. That dead north-facing corner you have given up on. By the end of year 2, it reads as a glowing silver patch of foliage visible from across the yard. One $18 plant fills a 2-foot circle that used to be bare mulch. Visitors always ask what it is, because most American gardens do not have it. Use this if you have given up on a shaded spot. Skip it if you only have full sun beds and no shade problem to solve. The next plant has the single biggest planting day mistake on this entire list. Quick check-in. Tell me in the comments what is the worst spot in your yard right now. The dry corner, the wet ditch, the slope that has defeated 3 different plants. Drop it below with your USDA zone. I read every one, and the next video on this channel gets built from your answers. Plant number 7. Blazing Star, Liatris. There is one plant on this list where the most common failure has nothing to do with watering, fertilizer, light, or zone. It is killed on planting day. Most people get this wrong inside the first 60 seconds of putting it in the ground and then blame the plant for the next 2 years. The wrong belief is that you plant a Liatris corm like a regular perennial root, point downward, however it happens to land in the hole. That is exactly how to get 0 bloom and a sulking plant for life. Plant number 7 is Blazing Star, Liatris baccata. The cobble cultivar is the compact 2-foot version that does not flop. Florist and White is the same plant with white flower spikes if you prefer a cooler color palette. Liatris grows from a corm, a flattened bulb-like storage organ. The flat side goes down, the pointed side goes up. The corm carries all the energy the plant needs to produce a full bloom in year 1. Plant it upside down or sideways, and that stored energy fights gravity for an entire growing season, exhausts itself trying to reorient, and the plant either dies or barely shows up above the soil line. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Full sun. Average soil. Exceptional drought tolerance once established. Plant the corm 2 to 4 inches deep. No deeper, flat side facing down. Blooms in July into August with tall purple flower spikes that open from top to bottom, the opposite of almost every other vertical perennial in your yard. Most flower spikes open from the bottom up. Liatris opens top down. Knowing this changes how you cut it for arrangements. Wait until the top third has opened, cut the stem then, and you get 2 more weeks of fresh blooms continuing on the lower spike indoors. A small grouping of Liatris in July looks like vertical purple torches rising 24 inches out of a flat border. Goldfinches and monarchs work the top of every spike. One pot at $10 turns into a clump of 6 to 8 stems in 2 years, and the clump tightens up rather than spreading uncontrollably. Use this if you have full sun and good drainage. Skip it if your soil holds water through winter, because the corm will rot in saturated ground. The next plant is the one that does not just survive in your yard. It actively multiplies itself into more plants while you do nothing. Plant number 8. Hens and chicks. If you have a rock wall, a stone crevice, a gravelly slope, or any hot dry spot where nothing else has lived past August, the next plant was built for exactly that situation, and the math on it is almost unfair to a homeowner. The wrong belief is that you have to keep buying plants every spring to fill a space over time. Sempervivum makes that thinking obsolete. Buy 1 rosette. Get 15 for free over 2 seasons. The plant does the work for you. Plant number 8 is Hens and Chicks, Sempervivum tectrum and its many cultivars. The cobweb variety has fine white web threads stretched across the rosette and is the showpiece of the group. Each mother plant, the hen, produces offsets, the chicks, on short side stems that develop into miniature replicas of the parent rosette. Those chicks root themselves where they land. 1 rosette becomes a colony of 15 in 2 seasons through asexual reproduction. You are not really gardening at that point. You are watching the plant garden itself across your stones. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. Full sun. Gritty lean soil. Sharp drainage. Rich garden soil and regular watering rot this plant fast. Sempervivum evolved on European mountain rocks and roof tiles. Treat your planting spot the same way and you cannot fail with it. Mix coarse sand or fine gravel into the planting hole at a 50-50 ratio with your native soil. The chicks will spread faster, the rosettes will color stronger in full sun, and root rot will not show up in year 2. Rich, amended soil is what kills most American Sempervivum plantings. Lean and gritty is the only rule that matters. That base strip along your driveway or the ugly section of dry stacked rock wall. By the end of year 2, it is a tight quilt of rosettes in burgundy, silver, gray, and red, like a living mosaic. One $4 starter rosette becomes the entire planting. The math on this plant is one of the strongest free plant returns in American gardening. Use this if you have a sunny, dry spot with poor soil and a stone or gravel surface. Skip it if your only available planting area is a rich shaded garden bed. The last plant on this list is the late-season bloomer I teased at the very beginning. Plant number 9. Japanese anemone, Honorine Jubbot. Every plant on this list so far pays off in year 1 or year 2. The closer takes longer. And if you do not understand what is happening underground while year 1 looks like nothing, you will pull this plant up and toss it before it ever shows you what it is worth in October. The wrong belief is that a perennial that looks tame in year 1 is a failure. Japanese anemone is the patient one. Year 1, it builds. Year 2, it shows up. Year 3, it owns the corner you put it in. Plant number 9 is the Japanese anemone, Anemone X hybrida. Honorine Jubbot is the white-flowered version and the cultivar most experienced American gardeners reach for first. September Charm is the soft pink alternative if white feels too clinical for your border. While the surface looks unimpressive in year 1, this plant is running a fibrous rhizome network sideways underground that you cannot see from above. Year 2, the network has spread far enough to support a full clump above ground. Year 3, the rhizome system is mature, and the plant is essentially impossible to kill. The payoff compounds every year you leave it alone. Hardy in zones 4 through 8. Full sun in cooler northern regions. Part shade in the south, especially anywhere afternoon sun is intense. Average soil. Moderate moisture. No drama beyond that. The bloom window is the headline. Late August through October, sometimes pushing into early November in mild zones, with cup-shaped white or pink flowers floating on tall, wiry stems 3 to 4 feet above the foliage. Do not move Japanese anemone after year 1. The rhizome network is doing its slow underground work. Every time you dig and transplant the clump, you reset the entire clock to 0. The plant that looks unimpressive in October of year 1 will be a 4-foot spreading colony in October of year 3 if you simply leave it alone. Resist the urge to fix it. Trust the process. Walk into your yard in mid-October. Most beds are tired. The lawn is going dormant. Summer is over. Your Japanese anemone is a 4-foot cloud of pure white flowers floating above bronze-tinted foliage, holding the whole show alone while everything else around it has quit for the year. That late-season payoff is what this plant is worth. One $15 plant, 3 years of patience, decades of October performance after that. Use this if you can wait 2 years for a real reward. Skip it if you are an instant gratification gardener who replants every spring. That is every plant on the list. The simple 3-plant starter combo. If you only have room or budget for 3 plants out of the 9, here is the combination that gives you the most coverage with the least work across the longest possible season. Start with Begonia for early spring. The leathery evergreen leaves carry you from January through March when everything else looks bare. The pink or white flower spikes open before most of your neighbors have even started thinking about the garden. Add Calamint Marvelette Blue as your summer workhorse. From June into early October, that single plant is a continuous low blue cloud that pulls bees from the entire neighborhood, never needs deadheading, and never needs cutting back. Close with Japanese anemone Honorine Jubbot for the fall finish. By the time the Calamintha is winding down in October, the anemone is hitting peak bloom and carrying your bed straight to first frost. 3 plants, 8 months of continuous performance in the same bed. Each one filling a window the others do not cover. 3 universal rules apply to every plant on this list. First, drainage matters more than fertility. Every lazy plant in this video fails first to soggy soil, not to poor nutrients. Test your drainage before you plant anything by filling a hole with water and timing how long it takes to clear. Anything longer than 4 hours, fix the drainage first. Second, plant in fall when possible, not spring. Roots establish in cool soil with steady moisture and 0 heat stress. Fall-planted perennials are 6 weeks ahead of spring-planted ones by their first summer. Third, leave the seed heads standing through winter. Phlomis, Sedum, Liatris, and anemone all hold their structure into January. Cut them in late March instead. Your winter garden looks alive, and the birds work the seed heads when the ground is frozen solid. That is the list. 9 perennials that bloom every year, ask almost nothing back, and let you spend Saturdays on the porch instead of in the bed. Peony, Sedum, Phlomis, Begonia, Calamint, Brunnera, Liatris, Hens and chicks, and Japanese anemone. Take 3 from this list that match your zone and your soil, get them in the ground this season, and watch what happens to your weekend schedule by next August. Tell me in the comments which plant you are starting with, and tell me your USDA zone and state. The answers are what shapes the next video on this channel, and other gardeners reading this section want to know what is actually working in their part of the country. If this is the type of practical plant breakdown that actually saves you money at the nursery instead of costing you another wasted spring, hit subscribe. One every week. No filler. No chasing trends. Just plants that perform in real American yards. And before you go, share this with one gardener you know who keeps replanting the same border every spring. See you in the next one.